and I am back with another video, just a reflection that I would like to speak about what I see is playing out in the moment. Obviously, as you know, I'm here to speak on everything to do with awakening and with ascension and with this evolution in consciousness that we're going through. And if you would like to know more information about those, I've got loads of videos on the YouTube channel explaining things in more depth when it comes to that. And now I sometimes like speak on the different themes that are happening in the world as I see them and as I experience them. And I feel like one thing that's happening at the moment is all connected with relationships and related to the way that we connect with each other and the way we relate to each other. And it's interesting because I've just been in London and now I'm in India, and I feel like even just moving, I'm seeing the same thing playing out. So obviously it's a collective theme, right? And basically what I feel like is happening is that there's been loads of solar flares, and as we know, the solar flares are here to support our journey. And the place where we're going is where shadow work integration is really, really, really anchored in. And as we move through this awakening, we are granted the opportunity to look at ourselves more and more and deeper. And it just so goes the way that it has been, that we are born and we are conditioned into certain ways, into certain roles, into certain habits and ways of being, and certain ideas aren't necessarily true, and we keep recreating these same programs and these same loops, and we keep looping in the same cycle. You know, they say if something keeps repeating for you over and over and over and again, it's because it's just trying to show you, it's just trying to teach you something. And if you find that if something is happening in your life and it's happening again and again and again, then really you have to ask yourself, what is it I'm learning from the situation? And once you get the lesson, reality changes and your world changes. You don't need to learn that lesson anymore, so it doesn't appear like that anymore. So as we keep going, the lessons get more refined and more subtle and more unique and harder to be able to see as well. So the point of this situation is that we get to keep seeing and we get to keep growing and evolving and learning. Anyway, the theme of what I feel like is playing out at the moment is basically to do with shame and ostracizing people from the group, blaming people, and the shame thing is quite a big one. I feel like when someone does something that you don't like or that's wrong, what I see has been happening is that there's been a proper shaming ritual that's going on where you're just calling people out in a way that I guess isn't very supportive. And when it comes to capitalism, colonialism and those structures of greed and just extorting things from other people, it can be very difficult because, you know, how do we hold people accountable when, you know, something that perceives them to have done is like really, really, really bad, it's really dark, and it's, you know, really not. It's operating in the old world structure of take, and in a way it seems like they are literally working as these service to self beings, right? And if they're not aware of it, they're supporting that dynamic. So how can we hold people accountable in a way that can actually support them in their path and their journey? Now, obviously the point is that some people are literally service to self beings and they're here, and we might not necessarily know that until we see their true face, but when it comes to those service to self beings, we're not here trying to hold them accountable in a supportive way, because their role is to literally be service to self. Their role is to be the opposite of what many of us came here for, and that is to hold the ground in this greed, in this division, in this disconnection from source and the separation, right? That's their purpose. And so because of that, there's no point wasting time trying to show and direct and, you know. But then at the same time, it can be blurry line because some people were born into the system, as many of us. I mean, yeah, as many of us, well, not everyone, but capitalism, colonialism, which are, all of these things are internal as well, by the way. And so when that happens, we are just operating from those models. We might not be self beings, but it looks like we are because we're just perpetuating that same dynamic. So we have to be able to see and know who is the, when is it worth the time to actually communicate in that way. And obviously, when it comes to like friends and family, I feel like obviously the way to move forward is to communicate in a way that is supportive of their journey. And there was a time in my life where I feel like there was so much that I could see that was happening with other people. Like so much. I can see people's shadows just playing out. I can see where they're getting stuck. And when someone would say something to me, I can hear what's going on. Not that I wouldn't get exactly how that happened in the first place. Not that would be revealed, but I could see the pattern, And I think for a long time I just let it play out because one thing that I understood very early on is that everyone is on their own path and on their own journey and, accept people where they are and that's it. So it's living in community and also with these shifts that are happening at the moment, I feel like I'm being called more to speak and to use my voice when it comes to those things, which can be quite tricky. But the reason why I feel like that's happening is because I am now stepping into the place in my path where I feel like I wouldn't be honest with myself if I don't speak on those things, And also in a way because I guess I feel like maybe I am comprehending that there is a certain way to do it. Now, even when you do it in a nice, kind, loving way, sometimes people will still throw it in your face because 100% it's not easy when somebody points out your darkness and points out your shadow and points out that maybe you might be misconceiving something. It's not a nice thing to hear for some people, right? If you have done enough work on yourself to realize that actually this is what I'm here for the shadow work, then you might have a different response and you might think, oh, okay, great, well, thanks for that, You might just admit it, you might just say, oh, actually, you know what? Thanks for your reflection. Or you could also just be like, that doesn't resonate, thanks anyway, One thing that I find interesting is like the charge. What is the charge that you might have if someone says and shares something about yourself and you don't agree with it? Because even if you don't agree with it, why is there a charge? Because one of my friends said to me quite amazingly at one point in my life that actually if you know that something isn't who you are, then there's no need and no reason for you to get annoyed or agitated about it because you know it's not who you are. So it comes from a place of stillness and a place of peace because whatever people try to throw at you, names and labels, it's not going to stick, right? So I feel like that's a good place to know where we want to be when all of this is happening, right? And as we know, a lot of people like to protect. So a lot of the time when people say, oh, hey, by the way, when this happened, they're not actually giving it to you from a place of insight. They're actually just projecting something from their story onto you. So again, that happens quite a lot. So I feel like, again, that's also another reason why people aren't always so welcoming and open with the feedback. But anyway, the point is, the shadows are coming out right now, like quite intensely, I would say. And when they do, we're all witnessing it in some way that's happening in a way where there's more than one person involved. It's in community, and I really feel like we are growing in community now through living with other people, witnessing and being with other people, right? And so the point is, when it happens like that, I feel like it's getting to a point where we cannot stay silent anymore when we witness someone's shadow and just playing out, and it and it just doesn't feel right, you know. I feel like at this stage we can't be silent anymore, and that's cool. That's good because we have to hold people accountable 100%. So the point is, how are you communicating that? So again, I'll rewind to the beginning of the video when I'm talking about shaming and blaming and all of those things. These shaming, blaming, humiliating people, these are not helpful ways to support somebody in their journey, basically. And if you really want to support someone, then we can approach them in a loving way. So one thing that I feel like is always important is to approach somebody and tell them, hey, always start with the positives, right? This is just emotional intelligence 101. And just make sure you anchor in and ground in that, like you're here for them. And listen, even when, like I said, even if and when you do this, it can still come back in your face because it's uncomfortable when people highlight things about you that you aren't aware of, or that you are still figuring out, and that's hidden in the darkness, right? And ugly aspects of yourself, right? We all have them. So anyway, the point being is that approach it in a way that is positive, and then basically always approach it in a way that is positive, and then share the gold. And I feel like, again, we're moving past the program of saying, you did this, it's not okay, and it's not cool. You did this, therefore I'm not going to speak to you anymore. You do this, so we're all going to outcast you, we're going to gang up, we're going to bully, and we're going to say, you're not welcome here. You can't sit with us, We're moving past these outdated programs, and we're moving towards love, as we know that is the whole point. Because we are love, and that's the objective, even though it's an unraveling, and it's not like, oh, we have to be there now, or any kind of pressure. The point is, we're coming back into more love, opening of our hearts. And when our heart is truly open, we don't do those kinds of things. We don't say those kinds of things. We're not in disconnection or separation. We're in connection with the source, the one. And actually, that's rule number one, and I speak about it on my online course, Awakening 101. Connect with source, because this is the one thing that is going to change your life, and it's going to help you on this path and on this journey. It's going to direct you, and it's going to show you the compass of the places where you need to go, and the hijacks and the distortions, and also becoming aware of these outdated programs, Anyway, so basically the point is always, listen, I love you, I'm here for you, I'm here to support you as a friend, I don't feel like I would be fulfilling my role as a friend if I don't tell you some of the things that I would like to share with you. I'm not saying this to hurt your feelings or anything. I'm saying this because I want you to rise into the best version of who you are. I know you very well, and I see you, and I'd like to offer my perspective, and you can do whatever you want with that. You don't need to take it on. Maybe it doesn't resonate with you, that's completely fine. I feel like this line is quite important because you can't force people into anything, and you shouldn't try to force people into anything or try to make them see anything, But I think one of the most important things is that to love people even in their shadow and even in their darkness. And that's a controversial thing, because I know a lot of people say, yeah, but they did this and they deserve it, Again, outdated program, we're moving through that. That is really not true unconditional love, you know what I mean? So, yeah. So then we bring the juice of what we really want to say. And when we do that, again, it needs to come from a place of the non-violent communication, which is your action. When this happened, when you did this, it made me and some other people feel like this. And it would be great, you know, if you can honor that your action is affecting other people as well. So if you're able to just be more aware of that in the time, you know, etc., etc. And also just be aware that like our shadows are playing out right now, not so that we can keep repeating it, but so that we can go to the source of it. When something happens in this way, if we might be expressing a lot of anger or fear or anxiety, and then it has an effect on other people, ultimately we need to be able to see how it's affecting other people and have that sense of awareness of responsibility and knowing that actually that started somewhere, and the work and the true shadow work is to go to the source of what that is and figure that out so that it doesn't keep repeating like that in that way. And it's, you know, it's not helpful for other people, but it's also not helpful for the person who's experiencing that, because at the end of the day, you know, I always say this, but like anyone who is in fear or anxiety or in their anger, like who's lost control of it, it's not a nice experience for that person, you know. So that's it really. I just really wanted to bring up this thing from what I have seen in different settings and different places, that we are going to need to be calling people to higher standards and to higher values and to higher spiritual values as well, you know, and to call people to do the shadow work, not because it's our role, but because the earth is bringing in these codes through the sun, through the earth, you know, through the land. This is the shift. Some people are tuning into it a little bit more than others, and that's okay. So, you know, some people have no idea about this path and what shadow work it even is or anything. And in relationships, it's so intense sometimes that like I feel like people just don't have the tools. So we can be the ones to deliver that message, you know, but deliver it kindly with an open heart and with with compassion, you know. And I really want to say that no matter how crazy and how dark whatever they may have done might seem, the point is that we must be able to hold them in their shadow with love. And again, I'm hearing people say, yeah, well, that's not my job, that's my role. But at the end of the day, you know, we're all unraveling this. We're all unraveling our own stuff at the moment, and you might just be there in that instance when it happens. So if that is the case, then, you know, it's up to us. You know, you don't have to say anything, but what I'm trying to say is that you don't have to cancel the person, you don't have to ostracize them, you don't have to shame them, you don't have to you know, call them out in this big, just huge way that's just like really heartbreaking and really unkind. And then back to the beginning of the video again, unless it's like a big corporation that is clearly on some colonial and, you know, very unaware of what's going on, then that's a different case. If you feel like you want to call them out, fine. But I would always say speak to the individuals first of all. Always say what you need to say, and then after that, if you feel like, you know, you have a responsibility because it's going to affect other people, then yeah, by all means. I feel like this is the era of holding people accountable. Again, it doesn't need to be done in a nasty way, right? Revengeful way. That's not the point. So even if we are calling out corporations and businesses and people in businesses or whatever, again, come from your heart. Always come from the heart space, and it's important. I think it's really important to hold people accountable. But the point is, you don't have to just say, I don't want to be friends with this person anymore because I can't handle their behavior, unless it's like directly impacting you, which it might be, and that's up to you to decide. But try something new, try to be in your heart, try to move with compassion and empathy, and try to actually support people. Because when you've walked this path and you know how very difficult and crazy it can be, then you know that we all need support, you know? We all need support and we can support each other. So that is my message for you today. And once again, I have created this online course. It's all about this journey, and it's all about emotional tools to support you into maturity, to find clarity, to find your purpose, and also to build a strong foundation, because I see so many people on this path who haven't anchored in that foundation in the first place, and the path can easily lead you astray. So if you are interested in that, the link is below. Check it out, and much grace for you through this shift. Keep remembering to drink water, clean water, pure water, activated water, and sleep when you need to sleep. Sleeping cycles kind of all over the place these days, and that's definitely a part of the shift. So thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.